fifth special guest, Maggie Benson with SureCheck Background Screening. How are you, Maggie?
I'm doing amazing today. Thanks for having me on, Jack.
No, appreciate you jumping on. Jerry's having some technical issues, so he cannot join us today, but we are on, just as a reminder for everyone, we're on at 11 o'clock East Coast time every Friday, 4 o'clock East Coast time every Monday. And every Friday, we try to have a special guru that knows something about things that Jerry and I don't know. And Maggie, you are the victim today to teach us about you and your organization and kind of what you do for the industry of commercial cleaning. So let's do this. Let's start off who you are, where you came from, how you got into this kind of indirectly into the cleaning business, and then a little more about your company, and we'll just kind of take into a dive into it.
Awesome. So my name's Maggie Benson. I'm the president of SureCheck Background. We are pre-employment screening, and we do 360 screening services. So we do everything from criminal background checks, setting up their drug testing, employment verification, license verification, reference checks, international checks, pretty much anything you need to make sure that you know who you're bringing on and you're taking on employees that you can expect to improve your organization.
In a nutshell, wow. So that, again, we want to talk about the process because I think the hiring process within commercial cleaning is kind of all over the board. I think we talked about that pre-show, but what are you seeing, not just in commercial cleaning, but what are you seeing in organizations overall, regardless if it's commercial cleaning, if it's just any business? What are you seeing overall within what companies are doing best practices within your space?
I probably should have given you a little bit more about my history. So I'm actually new to the background check space. In a former life, I was a primary school teacher. And then for many reasons, I realized I was better off as a business owner, and I actually purchased this company. So I've been in the operator seat ever since June, but the company's been around since 2008. The leadership team spent a lot of time when they first got started. They were leasing their software from a third party, like a lot of people in the background check industry. I think there's about 1,000 different background checks companies, but there's really only 20 companies that have their own software. So everybody's kind of leasing their software from a third party, but they hired a brilliant developer by the name of Mark Colbath, and he's still with us today, who they hired him to take on the job, and he told the team it's going to take 2 years. Ended up taking 10 years, but after making that investment and spending the time doing that, they directly integrated our software with every court record database. So that means you're getting accurate information. It's coming back much faster than average. Our average turnaround time is 8 hours, and that also allows us to be in control of the pricing. So a lot of what I've seen, especially with cleaning, based on the conversations I'm having and what I'm seeing online, is like people don't really know what they're getting charged for. A lot of times they'll maybe quote you a fee like $40, but they put in the fine print that you're paying for every county that comes up. So what they're going to first do is a social security trace, which traces the person's address history for the last 7 years. And so for every different address, if those are in different counties, you might end up having to pay $8 additional or whatever it is for all those counties that they've lived in. So they quote you, maybe it's a $30 package, but then after everything goes through, oh, look, now it's $100 because this person moved all over the place and they lived in 10 different counties. So now you end up paying a lot more. So I think that's one of the tricks within the industry. Also, another thing that I've seen is they'll break up all of the parts of the check. So one of the databases that we search is the Nationwide Criminal Database, which is really like a indicator. So it hits 800 different databases. So it'll hit like the OFAC, watch list, OIG list. I can't remember anyone else on the top of the head, but sometimes I see with competitors is they'll break those up. They'll say, oh yeah, the sex offender registry, the OFAC list, OIG list, but it's like, really, that's just one database. So they're trying to make it seem like you're getting a lot more than you really are. And so what I'm seeing with cleaning, but really any type of organization, is we just signed on with this kids soccer franchise this week, which they seem like they're doing a great job. They're growing really fast. They have over 50 different locations, but they were like, oh, we weren't even doing this before. Like, and they're working with kids that are 3 to 5. And like, I mean, I'm sure anyone who wants to be a soccer coach has a great heart and they're doing it for the right reasons, but it's like, it only takes one incident to have your entire organization shut down, or like have to pay millions of dollars of fines. Like your entire reputation is on the line. So it's like, it's such a small step to protect your organization. Like really what you're doing is you're reducing your liability. You're like getting a good understanding of who you're bringing on. And like, I don't know, in today's world, I think you just got to take all the precautions that you need. And another thing that I'm seeing specifically with cleaning companies is like, because there's such high turnover, they just don't want to spend the money. So I was on a Facebook page this week and I was seeing what people were saying. They were like, "Oh, I'll just look at their Facebook page," or "Oh, I'll just go to the state sheriff's office." But the problem with this country with government databases or government websites is like nothing. Well, at least for criminal records, is nothing really like speaks to each other. So if you're going to a state website, like a lot of times counties don't even report into the state. So like what you're seeing on the state isn't even a complete picture of all the counties within that state. So like the gold standard of a background check is to check the county courthouses because that's where you're gonna get the most up-to-date information.
Yeah.
Sometimes state databases are not up to date. Counties don't report into them. And I've seen people try to find just like bottom of the barrel. I can't even remember the names of the resources they were using, but I think they were around $10. But like, I can't imagine you would really be getting any type of quality data for something that only costs back $10. So our FCRA compliant package includes a social security trace, which traces their address, and then that ties to all the counties that they lived in. And then you check the county database, and then you check the nationwide criminal search, which is like all of those kind of like higher level white collar crimes, watch lists, OIG lists, things like that. So from there, you're really going to get like a complete picture of like the county, where the person lives, and then any higher level like felony crimes.
Yes, I think that's the thing is, Jerry and I, we work with different size companies. In this cleaning industry, there's, several 100,000 contract cleaners across the United States. And like we talked about earlier, it could be a one-man shop. Okay. You got, most of what we work with are companies less than 5 million. They don't really have a great, to be honest, they're not a great hiring process. It's kind of like a warm body. Let me find somebody. Hopefully they work out. You said, to your point earlier, there was a high amount of turnover. Jerry and I talk about hiring to culture, but the background check is the big companies I've seen do it. Jerry, did you background check when you ran your business as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and some days it seemed like it was a shot in the dark, because you'd send it out and next thing you know it came back in 30 seconds and you're like,
Yeah,
where did it go? And so yeah, I mean it is to me it was imperative, because the risk was too high, especially like Maggie mentioned, in a white collar crime, if somebody had stolen from a company or robbed a bank or something, obviously I don't want to put them in a bank cleaning banks, and but we pretty much had a straightforward rule, that everybody had to go through background check, and then anything above a certain level of offense, we just didn't hire them, and it was typically, it was hard because at the same time we had a culture that wanted to help people succeed, so you had to be very careful with what you did there on the hiring process. So
yeah.
I think Jerry brings up a really great point. Is that he's looking at like at actually what they did, because that's where you can get tripped up, especially in places like California. So they call this the individualized assessment. So based on what comes back in the report, you can't just say, "Oh, well, they've committed a crime. I can't hire them." Like you really need to take a look at the nature of the crime, how long ago it happened, and if it's going to relate to the duties of the job. Like there's specifically law firms set up to like go after employers who don't do this part correctly. Like we try to really follow the rules when it comes to FCRA and like what are the fair use guidelines of what we can do with the background check. So a lot of the times, I mean, it's rare that someone's not going to hire someone based on what happens, but like you do need to be careful when it comes to what they call adverse action, or like not proceeding with a candidate based on what comes back in their background check.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, and I think, I mean, for us, like I remember early on, we had an employee that wanted to come on. He had a felony of 35 years ago, and nothing since, right? And so I made the decision as a owner of the company that we were going to hire him, and we were going to give him a chance. And we put him in a situation to where he could succeed, And to this day, still with the company, he's killing it. He's a supervisor, doing great. So you're right, Meg. I think you do the cleaner and the more in depth that background check is, and gives you enough information to make a good, educated decision is super important in my eyes. So
Another thing I recommend is just having a chat with the candidate before you actually do the background check. Is like, hey, I'm going to run this. Am I going to
yeah,
see anything? Like, what's going to come up? Like, kind of give them a chance to explain before anything happens. Or even sometimes if you say you're going to run the background check and then they drop out, that's a good filter as well. Like, all right, well, that they just saved me $30 on a background check. I don't need to do it. Like, I don't need to proceed with this person anyway. So sometimes you
and
don't
I
even.
found yeah, and I found a lot of people, they would tell you, yeah, I have a pretty bad record, or I have some misdemeanors, things like that. Things that often you can work with. But and if someone is truly doing better in life, for a lack of better phrase, I mean that they're going to be honest with you about it, and that's a huge plus, especially when we're in an industry where, in America today, just trying to find good labor is hard right now. So.
Well, Jerry, I'm glad you mentioned that because Maggie did a special for us where we ran your background check as part of the episode today. So I just want to ask you a few questions about some of this. If you
Go
don't mind.
ahead. You probably seen a few speeding tickets, but hopefully that's all I remember anyway.
So
So.
luckily for me, I spent enough time out of this country. Is they don't have a good record of me.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Jerry. Though this is a serious question, but like I think I've seen folks run background checks. Most of them don't. We'll talk about that. But when you did run your background checks, did you market that as part of your proposal that your employees went through a X number filter
Oh,
background check?
absolutely.
Yeah.
We wanted, because we were working with government contractors, we were working in medical facilities and banks. I mean, and in the military contractor side, I mean, Jack, I've explained on many occasions on the show that, um, you know, we had to have the as high a level of a badging requirement almost that you can get out in the civilian, just to get people into clean.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge, huge part of our promotional material. And we would use the phrases at the time of what type of background checks we run on people. It's not just the standard. We would say we're doing this or we're doing this, depending on who we're marketing, who we're going after. And so when we reached out to military contractors, we would definitely let them know that we meet all the requirements and are willing to handle all the preparation and background checks for what they would require for us to partner with them in their cleaning.
Well, absolutely. Within the civilian, the chaos going on with the school shootings, the chaos going on with
Right.
the office shootings. I think it's just, I don't think I've seen, and Jerry, and we've been through a lot of customers. I don't think I've seen any marketing material that they're waving that flag that we do thorough background checks and here's what we're doing. So I think that's a business advantage to people who take care of that. But Maggie, let me ask you this. And again, all size companies, again, from a 5-man operation to the 6, 7, 10,000 employees. And again, the bigger companies most likely have all this covered. But if you're that small to mid-sized company, and we don't have, so let's just say I'm a company that's 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. I don't have a good hiring process, but I want to work on that. But I really want to get that background check. What is the protocol that you recommend, or what do you recommend that how they look at it? Maybe it's a crawl, walk, run, or maybe it's all in from day one. But what do you recommend?
I mean, if you want to do a very thorough screening process, I not only recommend a background check, I'd also probably recommend drug screening. Again, like sometimes that's enough of a filter where people don't even like they'll get the invitation to go set up their appointment and they don't go at all, and then they get filtered out. So background check, drug screening, employment reference check, which is another service we offer where we're like seeing if they have positive reference from wherever they've worked prior. Education verification, if that's something that you're looking at, and then an I-9 verification, which is just verifying that they have the right to work in the U.S., which is again something that I'm seeing a lot, especially with commercial cleaning. that there's been a lot of crackdowns on that. And I think across the board, I don't think it matters the size of the organization. It's like, if you're doing that, I think you're more likely to have an employee that's going to stay longer. Like, you're signaling to them that you're a serious organization. Like, we're trying to bring on good people. But I think you also need to reflect that as an employer, that you're a place that's worth staying for a long time. But I think if you have these practices in place, regardless of the size of the company, you can just like set up a package. So you have your process in place, everything's outsourced, and you have a filter, and then you're bringing on people that kind of take themselves seriously, that are like, they go figure out how to take a drug test. They can, put their information in an email and have their background check be run. Like, if somebody can't do that, I think that's enough of a filter, even if they can't figure it out, that they're not somebody that's going to stay a long time with your company.
Well, talk through that, because this was a dilemma. Like Connecticut, where I am now, it's now legal for marijuana. But what are the laws around, or can you talk at a high level? You take a drug test these days, and if marijuana is legal, how do you handle that if you come back a positive on that? Is that something you can't say anything? Do you have to say something? What's the protocol around that?
So I was looking at our overview of drug screenings. I think we probably have about 75 different drug tests you can take. It's anything from testing for alcohol only through 10 panel. Some of them are with THC, without THC. So I think it's more up to you as a company to decide, what is it that I really want to look for? Do you want to just do that 5 panel? That's fine. Is marijuana legal in your state? Even if it's not, is that something that you want to disqualify from someone? Or maybe just inform your employees that we do random drug screening. So, maybe it's easy to pass a drug test. You just don't do drugs for, I don't know, a month before you're going to get hired, and then you can go back to doing whatever you're doing. But if you have a policy in place that we do random drug screening, I think that'll either filter out employees or like help you get a better sense of the people that you have working for you. Because, if I know I have a drug test in a month, I'm not going to go out and party. But if it's random, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Maggie. I think, well, and Jack too. We need to keep in mind, when we say that marijuana is legal, and all, it's still not when you're operating a motor vehicle, especially if you have a organization like ours. We had 12 vehicles. Random drug screening was just a thing, And if anybody had any question, we sent people right away. It was all set up and ready to go ahead of time. But most of our people that were supervisors and office staff, all that had to operate vehicles, that was a requirement of them. And I know the law has changed a little bit now, but those things still are intact. And so I would encourage people, make sure that they understand that those laws that are in place in their state, they need to be up to date on them and understand. We don't want to just say, and as a company, well, it's legal to smoke marijuana. There's not much we can do about it. In the workplace, it still can be an issue.
Yeah.
And if you have those things, like Maggie said, in place ahead of time, and they know, and they've signed off an agreement that a random drug test can happen at any time, it still can affect your job. And so I think it's important, because there's a lot of business owners who will just fly right by that because they're too busy doing other stuff. So don't lose sight of that, because the liability is strong and huge. If somebody wrecks a vehicle, or hurts somebody in a vehicle crash, or even is irresponsible in the workplace because they're
Yeah.
smoking marijuana. So make sure that everybody's aware of those rules and that they're in place, and everybody has signed some sort of an agreement, and their employee pack. That's why it's important. And Maggie, you might be able to speak to this too, is annually renewing all those things. And is it commonplace now, Maggie, like when somebody, if they do work for you and they get some kind of charge against them, is there, are you finding that people are putting different policies in place to be aware of that, or are they renewing annually their background checks?
Again, it depends on the organization. I think that not enough organizations are really thinking through their hiring process, or like consulting an HR professional when they're doing their employee policies. So I'm seeing across the board, like sometimes they'll rescreen every year. Actually, we just had a new product launch, which is called continuous monitoring, which monitors every employee on a daily basis, checking the nationwide criminal record to see if they have anything pop up, and then notifying the employers if something does happen. So we're seeing that a little bit more with white collar roles. But again, I think it's just about putting into your company policy, like how are we going to approach this? What kind of people do we want to be bringing on? Like, what's the best way to have the most longevity out of this person that I'm taking the time to interview and background check and train and, have them get set up in our systems only for them to leave in a couple of months. So I think if you take a little bit more time in the hiring process, you're more likely to have people for longer. And then you can ultimately save money with background checks because you don't have to hire, you don't have as much turnover.
Yeah. Go back real quick because I think Jerry brought a good point up, and I think Maggie, you have something on that because I think we exchanged some emails about it. But you do a motor vehicle background check as well. Is that an additional background check, or explain a little bit about that?
You're right. I forgot to mention that. So driving records are separate. So we work with like some trucking companies. So that would be for most driving roles. I see it required, like specifically for like DOT truckers, it is required, and they have a whole separate physical that they need to go through. So that's just gonna get a history of their driving history. So anything below like a felony. So if they have like a DUI manslaughter, that's gonna show up on the federal records. But if it's like a speeding ticket or like something that didn't get too high up, it's only going to show up on their driving records. So if you have anyone that's going to be operating a vehicle, we recommend they have their driving records searched as well. So that's a motor vehicle check, and that's separate than a criminal background check.
So does the same apply? This is a question I would hear from customers. So I'm an employee, right? And I drive to 3 or 4 different buildings a night. Well, that first leg from home to the first building it's on me, but the in between going to other buildings is considered company time a lot of times, and organizations will pay for that. Is it important for them to get that driving record in that scenario? Um, I'm just thinking out loud because I know there are people who have asked, if they're on company time, are they liable if they were to cause an accident or do something like that? I'm curious about that. I know you're not a lawyer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an insurance agency or a lawyer, but I would imagine if they're operating a company vehicle, they have your company logo that they're wearing, I would still think that they do have some liability in terms of the company that they're operating vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a company vehicle, I'm just talking about if it's a personal vehicle. It makes me wonder. So it's probably not something we could answer, but I mean,
That's
yeah,
a good thought. I would love to answer that question. I'm going to look that up after this call.
yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely the driving route. That's a great resource, Maggie. That's good. Yeah.
Cool. Are a lot of times, I guess it depends on the company, but are they operating a company vehicle, or is a lot of times their personal vehicle?
It depends on the size of the company, but there are a lot of organizations out there that most of the employees drive their own car to and from work, which is fine. But there are a lot of times when they're cleaning multiple buildings a night. And it's just like with, in the scenario of us paying them, we don't pay them that first leg, to get to the first building. But in between, you can either do mileage or time and compensate them for that. And I'm wondering if the liability, because they're on company time, maybe not in a vehicle, makes you wonder. So I'm not trying to create, any any confusion in anybody's mind, but when we brought that up, I thought, I wonder if that could be an issue now in the current market. So now we're going to leave everything open ended on that one.
Wide open, Jerry. Hey, so Maggie, this has been great. I think this is just kind of a first step, but we'll have your information posted on the show notes. But give us just a kind of sample. If they reach out to you or your team, what is it that for a commercial cleaner, what would you say? Here's the package we're going to recommend. Here's what you get with it, and ballpark price you're looking at for something like that.
I mean, if you're only going to do the background check, that's $30. If you want to add the driving record, it's $5. Every state has their own fee system. So, for instance, in Texas, I think it's $6.50. So it's going to be $11.50 for the motor vehicle records. The I-9 verification is $5. But if you're going to do that, you need to do that for every employee. Employment reference check is $8. The drug test, it varies how deep you want to go, but it's around $32. So if you really want to go deep, maybe in the $70 range. If you're really cost conscious, it could be as low as $30 if you just want to check the criminal records. But if they're driving a vehicle, I would recommend that you're getting the vehicle checks. So as low as $30 up to $60 if you're doing drug screening as well.
And response time, really, what's the average response time from start to finish on the low end to the high end?
So if they don't have anything, nothing comes back, it can be 15 minutes. Our average turnaround time for the background check is 8 hours. The drug screening kind of depends on the employee. They'll get a link. They have to go set it up. It's either LabCorp or eScreen. They both have locations nationwide, so maybe they can get it done the next day. So that might take like 2 or 3 days to process. So I would say as long as a week if you're doing drug testing. If you're just doing criminal background checks, usually next day.
Cool. As far as the process, because again, most of the folks we're working with don't have a hiring process necessarily nailed down. But if we make an offer to someone, what's the policy? You say pending a drug test, background check. Is that how you kind of get that out of the way? So
you want to be careful here. In states that are strict like California, it needs to be based on a conditional offer of employment. So only after you give them that job offer, then you say we also require a background check and a drug screening. Then you have them go through that. If they pass everything, they can give them a job. So that's usually what we recommend as best practice, based on conditional offer of employment, based on passing these tests. Awesome. Jerry, any final questions?
No, it's been great. I think, one point to make, and a lot of business owners are probably thinking that, how do I pay for that with turnover and all? I would encourage you to budget for that inside your proposal for at least 2 to 3 turnovers. So for us, we budgeted $100 for background check in each proposal, just in case, we needed to go through 2 or 3 iterations of that. So, but yeah, this is great information, Maggie. I think this will be a very successful show for us to be able to put out, because I think this is good information for people to have an aha moment about their business. Like, I got to get this going. So yeah, and I think the point I take away is a low cost to prevent something from happening that can wipe your whole reputation out. I think that's a given. So that's good. Putting a tighter process around it, but really market it as well. If you're going to spend that $30 to $70, make that part of your pitch of why you should be hiring me versus this next person. So yeah, absolutely. I love it. Maggie, we'll let you wrap up with any final thoughts, ideas, concepts, for your life.
Yeah, I mean, I love cleaning companies. I really appreciate the grit and the spirit of so many that we work with, and I'm excited to continue to help more small business owners make better hiring decisions.
Cool. Well, we appreciate your time. Chasing Dirt Show wrap up for Friday. So everyone have a good weekend. And Maggie, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.